Hi you guys, welcome, välkomna, добро пожаловать. My name is Salmansa Rogers and today is Friday and that means another True Crime Stories with Sal. It's already week 2 of 2022 and already a lot of things have happened. We lost a lot of celebrities. RIP to Betty White. I really loved her, our golden girl. And yeah, a bunch of other stuff that I don't want to even talk about because I feel like, oh my God, the news does its job already. So much, yeah, so much shit's happening around. I hope you guys staying safe though, and I hope you guys are checking in on yourself and your loved ones and make sure everyone is okay and doing good mentally. Because again, like I said, let's focus on our mental health this year. It's so freaking important, especially with everything going around with all the new coronaviruses and all of the a bunch of other stuff. So make sure to check in on each other. If you are going through some rough times right now, just remember nothing is forever. We all go through it. It's life is a roller coaster. It's ups and downs and mids, and so don't worry, it will pass. And for now, let's just take a break, rewind, kind of sort of rewind. I'm going to talk about true crime, but just grab a drink, snuggle in, tuck yourself in, and get ready for today's case. Have my coffee, me, my light roast. So today's case, I'm going to do it a bit different. Instead of not revealing the true identity of the victim, I'm actually going to reveal her identity because this case, I heard of this case a long time ago and then I kind of forgot, and then it popped into my mind. I'm like, oh my God, why haven't I covered this case? This is probably the strongest victim, one of the strongest victims that I ever have came across or read about the case. Luckily, this victim survived and was able to tell her story. So it's a bittersweet. She survived, but oh boy, she went through a lot, and that's what we're going to cover today. So just a quick disclaimer, I will be talking about abuse towards a minor, sexual abuse, torture. I will be also talking about a murder as well. So if this is something that you cannot kind of listen to, especially sexual abuse towards a minor or what have you, the torture part, please click out of this video, and I hope I see you in another video. Let's jump into today's case. So today I will be discussing the case of Mary Vincent. And like I said in the intro, this case is a bittersweet case. The Mary fortunately survived her horrific ordeal, but she went through very, very scary situation and very, very painful torture. So at the time of this case, Mary was 15 years old, and this took place in September of 1978. And just to kind of like tell you a little bit about Mary's background, Mary was born and raised in Las Vegas in Nevada. Her mother was a blackjack dealer and her father was a mechanic. She had 7 siblings, and Mary was one of the mid-children in that 7 sibling group. And in her early teens, Mary became very rebellious towards her family because her parents was a bit strict. That they wanted their children to kind of behave. They have curfews and what have you. So Mary was a little bit of a rebellious child, and she would run away from home from time to time and then come back and what have you. And when Mary was 14 years old, she moved in together with her boyfriend. I couldn't find the age of the boyfriend, if they were the same age or if he was older. I'm assuming he was older because a few months after she moved in with him, he was actually arrested for sexually assaulting a high school girl. And that was kind of like at that point, Mary felt like, okay, I had enough of Vegas. It's only drama, it's only negativity. I want to, move to Los Angeles. Her grandfather lived in Corona in Los Angeles, so she felt like that would be a great idea to go visit her grandfather. And also, Mary had a passion for dance. She wanted to become a professional dancer, so she felt like Los Angeles would be a great opportunity town for her. After a few weeks of living with her grandfather, Mary just suddenly got homesick, and she felt like, you know what, I want to go home. I miss my family. I miss my siblings. This was not exactly what I thought this would be, or what have you. So one day when I think the grandpa went to work, Mary sneaked out of the house and she became hitchhiking. And just FYI for those that don't know, but back in America, hitchhiking, especially in the 70s, and remember this case is in 1978, especially in the 70s and the 80s, hitchhiking was super popular. That's the way that people kind of like is popular or as normal as we take the bus or what have you, or take an Uber. So that was the way of transportation, basically, from place to place. And it was nothing seemed like weird about it. Everyone was doing it, and this was totally, totally normal. And at this point, Mary reached Modesto, California. So from her grandpa's house in Corona, she's now in Modesto, and she befriended two other hitchhikers that was also going back towards like Nevada, Las Vegas, and what have you. And they were all three standing on this road in Modesto, and kind of have their sign, we're going such and such place, and hoping for a ride. And after a while, this blue van stopped, and inside it was a middle-aged man. Looked like a very friendly man, looked like a grandpa almost. And that's what Mary felt like when she saw this man. She felt like he really reminded her of her grandpa, and since she had a good relationship with her grandfather, she kind of like, felt like this man was very harmless. And when she asked him that if he could take them to Vegas or close by there, he replied to Mary that he can only take her. He would not take the other two hitchhikers, but he only have room for her. Even though Mary saw that the van was pretty much empty and he could easily fit two people in the back. And so she was kind of a little bit, question mark about this. And then when she told the other hitchhiker, like, hey, he is only giving me a ride. Unfortunately, he doesn't want to, take you guys on. They kind of pointed out to Mary, like, hey, be careful. This is a red flag, because if he only is willing to take you, only one female, that's a kind of red flag. But Mary, shrugged it off as, he looks so innocent. He looks like a nice guy. I don't think this is nothing. And also, she was very tired. And at this point, she didn't care. She just wanted to go back home to her family, and she was very, very homesick. So Mary jumped into the van, and they both drove off. And so I have read different sources saying different things. One source said that they stopped off at this man's house, and Mary was helping him with some laundry, and then they continue on the road or what have you. But I'm just gonna go off the story that I watched Mary tell, so her own interview, her own words. So I'm just gonna go off on that. A few miles, they are into their journey, a few miles, and Mary feel like he's pretty safe, and she didn't feel any weirdness or what have you. So she kind of like dozing off, and she fell asleep. And upon waking up, it's already getting dark, and she started noticing that they are heading in the opposite direction, and she could clearly see the signs. And then she became slightly panicked, and she's like, hey, what's going on? Why are we in the wrong direction? We're going the opposite way. And the man is like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. This is just an honest mistake. Let me turn back around. And he did. He turned the vehicle back around, and they are going now in the right direction. And after a few minutes, the man said to Mary, like, hey, you know what? I'm going to pull off in this road here I need to go to the bathroom. And as they pulling off, instead of just pulling off the road, like on the shoulder of the road, he literally pulled off in this gravel road into the wooded area. Now the alarm bells just start ringing, and Mary's intuition start kicking in, and she feels like something is off with this man. So when the vehicle stopped, the man got out to go to the bathroom. And at this point, Mary's looking around, and she noticed that one of her shoelaces in her shoe is untied. And she's quickly thinking, I better tie the shoe because I don't know what's going to happen. I might need to start running away from this man. So instead of tying it in the side of the vehicle, it was a smaller space, according to Mary. So she stepped out of the vehicle and onto the ground and started tying her shoelace. And as she was finished and just about to get up, she felt a huge blow to her head. Mary's now abductor used a sledgehammer to hit Mary in the head. When Mary woke up, she was naked, her hands were tied, and she was now laying in the back of the van. And she could see her perpetrator getting undressed, and she knew what was going to happen to her. For the next several hours, Mary was raped. She was forced to perform oral sex, but when that didn't satisfy her attacker, he raped her both vaginally and anally. And according to Mary, she can recall that she was raped more than 6 times that evening. And this torture continued on for a few hours. After that, her attacker got tired, so he went to sleep. And at this point, Mary tried her hardest to, free herself from the ropes that her hand was tied with. She tried her best, but she was also bleeding from her head. She was also very tired physically, emotionally. So she literally just lay there next to her attacker the whole night, basically. And then in the early morning, he woke up, and she remembered. She didn't sleep anything at all, by the way. She was just maybe dozing off, but yeah, she was pretty much awake. And in the early morning, the sun hasn't even rose yet. Her attacker woke up, and he forced her out of the van. He untied her rope. And by the way, during the attack, Mary pleaded with him. She was crying. She was speaking softly to him to please release her. Please set her free. She would not tell anyone. She would not do anything. She just want to go home. And that were her exact words, please set me free. After he untied her, he told her that you wanted to be free. I'll set you free. Mary's abductor grabs a hatchet from his toolbox, and he proceeds to attack Mary with it. And before he raised his hand and before he about to hit her, she grabbed his arm and hold it tight to kind of prevent him to hit her. But after a second or two, she felt like she was falling backwards, and she couldn't really understand what was going on. Why is she falling back if her arm is holding on to him? And as soon as she looked down, she realized that he had cut off her arm in half below the elbow, and that's why she was falling backwards. So her left arm was still clutched into him, but since he chopped it off, that's why she was falling back. But he was not done yet. He approached her once again, once now she's lying on the floor, bleeding profusely from her left arm. He proceeded to attack her some more, and this time she held on to him with the right arm, with her right arm to prevent the blows. and starts kicking and screaming. And since she was now kicking, screaming, and making more difficult for him, it took, according to Mary, him 3 blows to chop off her right arm below the elbow. And after he was done, she could see him flickering off her own hand that was still clutched into him. And he was like kicking it off like it was a bug or some insect that was like, oh, a spider. And at this point, she was in just excruciating pain. Blood was pouring out of her arms, and she was in and out of conscious. But she still could remember that she thought to herself, I need to play dead. In order for me to survive, I need to play dead. So he thinks I died, and so he cannot harm me no more. And so she did. So she played dead, and she laid still. He grabbed Mary, lifted her up, her naked body, and he basically went down 30 feet down in like this covert. I'll insert a similar picture so you guys understand what I'm saying or what I mean. And he basically tucked her lifeless body, or he thought she was lifeless, into this covert, tucked her in there, and she could hear him say, now you're free. And he left her. He left her there bleeding. And at this point, Mary was laying still because she didn't know if he had leave. She didn't hear the car or anything. So she was scared that he still might be there or might be somewhere around to kind of like see if she's going to wake up or have you. So she was laying there for a few minutes and actually kind of dozing off, of course, from the pain and from the blood loss. And after a few minutes, when Mary came to, she realized that she's still in this horrible situation. She's still alive, and at this point, she felt like, I cannot give up. I have to fight. I need to get help, and I can't let this man do the similar thing to another girl. That's basically what made Mary to keep continuing to survive, to get help. So she thought that she needed to do this so he cannot do anything else like that to another human being. And so she stood up. She actually put her arms into the mud to kind of prevent the bleeding. And she climbed up that 30 feet steep hill without any hands, only with her feet, and climbed up there. And once she was now on the higher level, she could like hear some car going back and forth, like going. So she knew that it was a highway close by. So what she did is she raised her hands to prevent for more blood loss and also to prevent her muscle to fall out, her wounds. And she walked naked, bleeding, with no hands, and up in the her arms up in the air with no hands, and to go get help. After a few minutes, she stumbled upon this highway, and she actually saw a red Corvette with 2 guys was driving in that car, and she was screaming to them and waving, help me, help me. But as soon as they came closer and they saw her, they got so scared and they just drove off. And according to Mary, she kind of like understood, like she probably looked like she literally was just on set on a horror movie, like all naked, bleeding, with no both hands cut off. So she understood that she probably looked very, very scary for people. So she was not losing hope. She was thinking, like, next car that will come across, I will ask nicely, I would not scream, and hopefully they can help me. And it took her 3 miles. So she walked 3 miles until a couple that was actually on their honeymoon. They were going to their hotel, and they were lost, and they so happened to be on the same highway as Mary, and they saw her. They stopped the car. They picked her up. They had some blankets in the back seat or in the trunk. They wrapped her wounds around, and they rushed to the nearest phone where they call the ambulance and the police and what have you, and Mary was rushed to the hospital. All Mary could say at this point was, I was raped, before she, went into the hospital and immediately needs to get surgery. And according to the doctors, she lost half of her blood in her body, and the other half was actually became poisonous. But her body was so desperate to survive. After the surgery, Mary was interviewed by the police, and she gave a detailed description of her attacker, like literally to the T. Police didn't wait no longer. As soon as the sketch was finished, they immediately went public with the sketch. And 10 days later, they receive a call from a man that claims that he thinks that the sketch is of his neighbor, a 50-year-old Lawrence Singleton. They arrested Lawrence Singleton, and sure enough, he was Mary's perpetrator. After that, a trial began, and once again, Mary had to see her attacker. And this was, of course, a bittersweet moment for Mary. She was happy that he finally was apprehended, and he's going to get what he deserves. And on the other hand, she had to relive that story again and right in front of him. And of course, this was not an easy task to do, but she did it anyways. And first, it was Lawrence's turn to tell his version of the story. And basically, he said that Mary was a $10 hooker, that he gave her a ride to be nice, but then she tried to rob him, and that she attacked him, and that he basically chopped her arms in self-defense. He never raped her. He never did anything of that. He was just an innocent man that tried to give this girl a ride, and that she just, tried to attack him and rob him. And he also claimed that Mary had sex with two other hitchhikers in front of him, and that Mary also kind of like try to force him to join in on the act, and once Mary's turn to go up there and testify, she basically pointed at him with her now prosthetic arm, and said that that's the man that attacked me, that's the man that raped me. And as Mary was done testifying and was stepping down to leave, so she had to kind of like pass him, and she could hear him whisper to her while she was walking by him, this is quote unquote, he said, "If it's the last thing I do, I'll finish the job." And according to Mary, she was super scared, and she actually didn't say anything to anyone until a few years later, what he had told her that day. And so the jury found him guilty, and unfortunately, back then in the 70s, the maximum penalty, the years that the judge could give Lawrence, was only 14 years. And of course, this was a huge blow. Everyone was so disappointed. But even the judge, he actually said if this was his decision, he would definitely give Lawrence life. But according to California laws back then, this is the maximum that he could give him, so 14 years. And at this time, Mary was living in fear, and as soon as she found out that he was paroled and he was out, she was just even more afraid that he was actually going to kill her, because that's the last thing he told her in the courtroom, that he would finish the job. So she was living in constant fear, and also she fell into a deep depression, because now she have to learn to live her life without hands, and her dancing dreams fell apart. She could no longer proceed dancing, so she was coping with that. So this was not an easy, like, easy recovery for her, both mentally and, of course, physically. In 1997, police gets a call from a local painter. He is panicked and he sounds very scared on the phone, and he explains to them that he is painting this apartment, and the apartment across the street from him, he has a clear view from the windows. He can see a bloody naked male standing above a bloody naked, looks like a female body. The body is laying on the couch, and she looks to be deceased. She's not moving. He cannot see any movements, and the man is repeatedly stabbing her. Police quickly rush to the scene, and upon breaking into the apartment, they find a naked man, and he's covered in blood, and he kind of looks delirious. He doesn't know what's going on, and they arrest him, and this man is no other than Lawrence. Unfortunately, the woman was deceased at the scene of the crime. She passed away from the stab wounds. She was a mother of three. She was a local sex worker that was hired by Lawrence that day, and that after they had sex, he basically stabbed her to death. This story spread out in the media, and once Mary heard of the story, she definitely felt like she needs to fly to Florida and be a part of this trial to testify against Lawrence. So hopefully this time he would never ever be set free. So she did. She flew to Florida and she testified against Lawrence, so the jury could hear her story, what he did to her, and realize that wherever Lawrence Singleton goes, it's only mayhem, murder, torture. Lawrence Singleton was sentenced to death, and a new bill was passed in his name. So the Singleton bill, it basically means that all the perpetrators that commit a heinous, torturous crime will get minimum of 20 to 30 years to life. So between 20, 30 years to life in prison. Mary went on with her life. She actually married, and she had two children, two boys. And instead of dancing, which was her main passion, she actually discovered painting. So she became an artist. The recovery process for Mary was, of course, not the easiest one, which is, that the fact that she even recovered, that's the thing. Like, I don't know if I'm that strong, to be honest with you, but it took her years. Luckily, she had support from her family, and then her sons were her greatest motivation and support. Her story is just, again, like I said, this is out of a horror movie. This is crazy. And the fact that she actually survived, her willpower to survive, her strength is something out of this world. I don't know personally if I would able to do that. I think I'm strong, but then again, it's just crazy. And she's such a motivation for a lot of people, and including myself. Literally, she's a hero. And the fact that she could face her perpetrator twice and just be there at the at the courtroom, and testify in front of him, tell the whole story. That's crazy. This woman literally deserves a medal if she already haven't got any awards. So yeah, but this is the story of Mary Vincent and her tragic, tragedy and triumph. This is definitely tragedy and triumph all in one. Well, that, my friends, was it for today's story. I don't know, have you guys heard of the story? What do you guys think? This is definitely should be a movie. I don't know, maybe it is a movie already. If it is, let me know in the comments. I'll definitely want to watch this movie. But yeah, this is a crazy, crazy story, and I'm happy that it turned out the way it did. I'm happy that Mary survived and she overcame all of her struggles. Just proves to us that how strong our bodies and minds that us humans in general, how strong we are, you know. And like I said in the beginning, like, please, you guys, take care of yourself. I always say love yourself first, but I really mean it. Like, take care of your mental health, take care of yourself first, because you cannot treat others with love if you don't treat yourself with love, you know. And especially if you have family and kids, you know, you want to set a good example. They don't want to see you know, I don't know, depressed or angry parent, you know, because kids are sponges. They learn everything from their parents. So you want to take care of yourself so you can spread, so you love yourself, so you spread more love to others. And yeah, I feel like literally like Mary, she's my hero. I swear. Every time I'm going through anything, I will definitely think of her and her will to survive and the things that she went through and how she survived. So if she can, we can too. And again, my darlings, if you leave a comment, please make sure it's a respectful and nice comment. We never know who's reading, and still, this is a true story. This is real people involved. So be mindful and respectful in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and of course, subscribe before you leave. I appreciate all the love from you guys, and the more the better, of course. If you know someone that knows someone that knows someone, then send them my way. Share this video on your Instagram story or text this video to someone that loves true crime. And if you have any future story suggestions for me, please just leave a comment below. And I always read my comments, so just FYI. And I hope you guys stay safe and love yourself. And until I see you guys next Friday, let me grab my mug. Ciao, cacao.